Okay, we're gonna test this. Is that coming through? Let me see. Give me a second. I'm trying to go live. I'm trying to figure out, trying to do new stuff. Hold on. Let me see if this works. Share screen. Boom.
Hey, hey, yeah, okay, smoking on Neptune. Young man been in this bag, I'm fly like jet fuel. I know you wanted to, but nigga, we did it. I had to go get it. I couldn't just sit on it. Shorty depending on me. I'ma bring out the beast. Opposition is really a treat. Some say they feeling defeat. I say they weak in the knees. Hey, I got a feeling somebody gon' trip today. It's either me or them, can't be no other way. I put a demon right here on my dinner plate. Man in the mirror, I'm facing a heavyweight. Shedding that off though, filling the plot holes. This is my story. I'll pass on the glory. I still get the bag, but I know what's important. I'm scoring like Jordan. I smoke me a quarter, then cut up a half. I'm serving the order of soul for your ass. They need it real bad, like kids need class. Ain't get it too fast. It took me some time. Don't pay me no mind if you ain't got your own. Securing my home, paying back on these loans. Can't pick up the phone. I'm too out of space. I roll up and face it. Going through phases. Yeah, I'm amazing, bitch. So many ways I can switch it up. Yeah, they won't be cause they know they ain't big enough. Hold up, I got that whopper inside of my chopper. Don't make me take you to the opera. Calling your doctor, you an imposter. 1 minute turn them to ash like a roster. 2 minutes I find the key to unlock the secret of life. I can't be enticed by all of these lights. Just give me the mic and I'll rock it all night. I'm in a space this way out of sight. If they want war, we gon' finish that fight. Put that on life, don't put me on ice. I feel like Biggie, I'm ready to fly. Step to me, better be ready to die. Niggas transforming, vision be gorgeous. The bag was enormous. Yeah.
This a hell of a performance. Damn. Turn a hater to a tourist. Bitch. Y'all on that bullshit. Way beyond winner, I'm still on my cool shit. You a beginner and I got the blueprint. All of these fake messiahs is a nuisance. How in the fuck you used to being useless? Nigga, that's excuses. I been gaining more momentum, cutting up like denim. Keep it confidential, body instrumentals. Guru monumental, intercontinental. Food for yourself, man, my shit is supplemental. Opportunists, I ain't missing the shit. When you God gifted, always come in the quick. Had a different vision, I ain't stick to the script. Screaming, fuck the system, treat it just like my bitch. Get in, get in, get in, get out. Niggas want act out, I pull that whip out. I got a new way of affirmation. Making this money my confirmation. You niggas still have the same conversations. Talking about this and that and him and her and white and black and dog and cat. The fuck is you at? Man, y'all niggas still talking about Jesus, man. The fuck is you at? The fuck is you at? Nah. Man, y'all know it's spiritual warfare going on. The fuck is you at? The fuck is you at? Man, I know y'all still ain't talking about no 9 to 5. Going to college to get your masters.
Fuck is you at? The fuck is you at? Okay, smoking on Neptune. Young man been in this bag, I'm fly like jet fuel. I know you wanted to, but nigga, we did it. I had to go get it. I couldn't just sit on it. Shorty depending on me. I'ma bring out the beast. Opposition is really a treat. Some say they feeling defeat. I say they weak in the knees.
I say they weak in the knees. No, I'm talking about that SWV. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Dave B. You watch the Day Beyond TV, where we go beyond that everyday bullshit that people be consuming on a day-to-day basis. And you know what I'm saying? I'm just breaking down some astrology. We got the full moon in Gemini. Hold on, let me go ahead and close this out. Shit like that. Boom, you know what I'm saying? Gotta start somewhere. That's the tape I dropped last year. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we gonna break down this full moon in Gemini, and I put in the title, We Listen and We Don't Judge, because that's for the most part the theme, the whole vibe of this energy. To me, it seems kind of like that. And that's like that meme going on right now and shit like that. You know, we listen and we don't judge. That's what, you know, all the TikToks and stuff like that. It's like a trend going on right now, but it's ironic how sometimes trends be linking up with what's actually going on as far as energies that we can perceive and things like that through astrology. So with this full moon in Gemini, we already know it's a great deal of energy when it comes to our minds. Gemini energy is mutable air, so it's our thoughts. I like to look at it as the thoughts, and it's the mentalities, and part of a mentality is kind of feelings, but you know, for the sake of just clarity and not getting too mixed up, a lot of it is about thoughts mainly, our thoughts. But I like to look at the third house in Gemini energy is mentality. So it's a little bit of feelings mixed into that, the thoughts and feelings that we frequent or we frequently think about, right? And what I mean by that is like when you wake up every day, chances are there's like a you could call it like a group of thoughts that you normally interact with, right? And from those thoughts you normally come up with certain feelings or ways to feel about those thoughts, but everybody has kind of like a frequent thought pattern that they go through every day that's pretty common to them, and it's not until something completely different happens in your experience or during your life that you start to think differently about those little, they'll say like that third house space, right? So that's why they equate the third house to being familiarity. So, when you're thinking about Gemini energy, Gemini is that mutable air. So it's not just your thought, but a lot of different other thoughts around you. So when we have a full moon in this energy, you can kind of interpret that as um the opportunity to either be on a higher octave or lower octave of Gemini, which the lower octave would be scattered minded, right? So there's a bunch of random thoughts that have no correlation and that leave you in a space of being confused, and confusion is kind of the basis of this. Like a lot of times, like what you might feel right now, especially if you depending on the type of seeds you've been planting, even if you've been planting good seeds, right? Because one thing we got to keep in mind too, as far as full moon energies, it's not all about what feels good. Sometimes you might equate, oh, I feel good today on this full moon, so I must have planted good seeds, or vice versa. You might be like, damn, I'm having a hard time dealing with this energy, it's pretty intense for me. The thing about it is what determines whether or not you're planting good seeds or bad seeds is not necessarily what's happening, because sometimes what's happening is more so presented to you to make a decision, and from that decision you make, it's more about how you navigate the experience than the experience itself being the determining factor of whether or not you on the right path or planting good seeds or not. So sometimes you got to accept the fact that it's not always going to feel good. Whatever you're going through, it's not always going to feel like, oh, so you're not always going to have that feeling that confirms necessarily whether or not you playing good seeds or bad seeds. Really, the answer or the truth is it's ingrained in the decisions you make in that space, whether or not you choose to take it personally or you choose to convert it, transmute it into something that could be beneficial. So in this case, right, the lower octave of this energy is being completely scatterbrained or misinformed. So not really having enough of the information or not enough of the not necessarily details, but it's kind of like being completely out the loop to where now you're in a space where you're completely unfamiliar and you don't even have the right information to create a context to know where to kind of start from, because that's kind of what Gemini energy represents. Gemini is all about, again, Gemini on the worst days could be very scattered here, there, everywhere, and then um not know where to take things seriously, or to be kind of like on the communication end, talking too much, so overly informative, or lost in thoughts, so on and so forth. Now Gemini in its best, right, high octave Gemini energy, this is energy in which you actually have the right information, and based upon your openness, like having an open mind, you're able to kind of take in a lot of different information, but not just taking in, you're also able to relay messages and gain some form of clarity. Even if you have a bunch of thoughts around you, there's a clarity that is provided to you with Gemini energy, and that clarity comes from you not necessarily needing to take things personal, you being able to be light enough emotionally in order to kind of properly navigate the labyrinth of information you might be presented with. There might be a lot of different things from different angles, and again, this is a mutable energy, so you need to know how to be adaptable mentally. So think about it like this. You might be in a situation right now, right? Full moon energy. There might be an intense amount of information being either relayed to you or things going around that's kind of causing your attention to be split. Now, how you manage that information and how you choose to navigate it and what you choose to communicate from that space is kind of like, again, the determining factor on whether or not um it's kind of like showing you whether or not you've been leaning towards the right path. And then what's even more important is how you choose to deal with the current situation and the current information being presented to you. So off the rip, we got the moon conjuncting Jupiter. So this is basically our experiences are being expanded and we're having a much larger emotional response to those things. So in that space, you got to kind of consider for yourself, um, again, it's like there's a lot of things to emotionally maybe arouse you, but keep in mind it's Gemini energy. So there needs to be a certain reminder in the back of your head that at the end of the day, you need to keep things light. You need to keep things flexible. You need to be mentally flexible because let's say you get privy to certain information that makes you again react and respond in a very harsh way. Maybe you react and respond and you take the bait, and so that might lead you to do certain things in this space that kind of confirm. And see, the thing is, like when we're going through different experiences in life, everybody going through something different. So what I'm talking about, I'm providing just the possibilities, you know what I'm saying, and different ways to look at the different energy. But for your own specific situation, you got to be able to have the discernment and determine whether or not again, kind of how to like some tarot readers will tell you that, take what resonates and leave what don't. But it really is a matter of depending on what you're going through and how you need to respond to the information being given to you. Keep in mind where your emotional state is and how it might be kind of influencing you to go about your experience in a certain way, because depending on it, you might be getting certain information, right? And if you're in a flustered emotional state, or let's say you got a lot of different things on your mind and not enough patience to kind of create some clarity within all those different thoughts, it could inspire you to act on certain things in a very irrational way, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of that is coming from where the sun is at. Now the sun is also conjuncting Mercury. So we're kind of dealing with this awkward opposition where we got Jupiter where Mercury likes to be, and we got Mercury where Jupiter likes to be. So it's like information and our wisdom about it or how to go about the experience are at odds, and they can get mixed up and kind of not knowing quite how to interact or maneuver. So again, a lot of this is the time where, like I was saying earlier in the year, this is the age of bad advice. So this is kind of where things are making itself apparent. Oh, wait, hold on. That wasn't good advice. Or hold on, wait a minute. I didn't quite get the right perspective of this thing. I didn't quite see it this way. So this is kind of where things can clash. Information and wisdom can clash. Your experience itself and maybe what you're analyzing in that experience can kind of be at odds, or not, they're at odds at the moment. And so it's kind of like it's a lot of different layers to it. You need to know that you're interpreting the information you're getting properly, and that takes a little bit more of maybe reflection rather than trying to be, moving quickly about certain things that make you uncomfortable. Sometimes you're in like I said before, with the moon conjunct in Jupiter, your feelings are being expanded right now. So at a time we're supposed to keep our feelings light, they're also being expanded. So we actually have the opportunity to observe a lot more and kind of think about our emotions. Our emotions are on our mind. And when your emotions are on your mind, if you're a person who's prone to overthink, this is where things can get tricky, because if you're overthinking about how you feel, and let's say you're going down a negative train of thought, guess what's going to happen? You're going to reproduce a bunch of negative scenarios that could come true based upon you just having so much concentrated energy in that space. You can talk yourself into a bad decision. You can talk yourself into a good decision too, because if you got a lot of better feelings, the moon will expand those feelings, and you'll have multiple thoughts on how you can attack something in more of a positive way. So this is really a test to see where your mind is at the moment, because if your mind, again, and everybody's different, some people are more prone to have more negative thought, be more pessimistic and more critical about things, and some people are more prone to be positive and have kind of a more optimistic viewpoint of life. So, again, as a spirit, you can choose what spectrum you want to be on, but it does require a certain level of self-awareness. You need to know where you lay on that spectrum. And based upon where you lay on that spectrum, at that point, it's your choice. This is where you're granted free will, because we all have a choice. So a lot of times people get it confused. They live this life and they live it backwards. So they think that what's already on their mind is just the end all be all. So if you're a person who, let's say you're a spirit who's prone to think more negatively, right? You might go about life thinking that every negative thought you got is something to embellish in and expand and bring to life. So you end up having a life that's more negative and things like that. But again, you have that power to say, oh, okay, I know myself. I know I tend to think more of the negative aspect. Let me actually add a little bit of the positivity, or let me look at it from different angles, or maybe surround myself with people who have different ways to think and see certain things I'm dealing with, that can either create balance and help me come to a better decision on what path to take at what time. Because again, we all have our preferences. These things become our biases and what we kind of lean towards. And that goes very deep, all the way down to the zodiac sign we chose to come through, and the different placement of planets based upon us as a spirit choosing a body coming at a certain time frame, aka whatever your natal chart looks like. And wanting to embody that energy, we have certain biases that develop over time. And again, our energies influence how we respond to our environment and situations going on, and these develop as we get older into, again, more firm biases and perspectives on our life and the life that we're living. But again, this is the importance of knowing yourself, because when you know yourself, you're able to kind of take your power back in the sense of being more of an observer of all these energies. And then that at that point, you're able to be a lot more intentional about where you want to direct your energy, or where you want to direct your focus. Because again, everyone's different. If you know yourself and you know you lean more negative, you know that, well, before I make a decision just with my own biases, let me introduce another of the opposite energy, or a different type of energy, to create enough balance to have a much more, again, make a much more clearer decision, instead of just going off of what feels right. Because that's where a lot of people, I think, mess up, is they go off of what feels right, and sometimes what feels right isn't actually right or best for that scenario. Sometimes what feels a little more difficult, or what feels a little maybe off, might just be something outside of your energy. For instance, me, I'm a water sign, right? I got a water sun, a water rising, and a fire moon. So sometimes slowing down and using a little more patience, logic, or practicality in certain areas doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to put myself on a schedule. It doesn't feel right all the time to kind of consider the realistic aspects of certain things in certain contexts, right? I'm making this simple, so I'm not getting into detail. But again, it doesn't always feel right or good to do that. But again, having enough wisdom to say, well, I know I lean more towards a bias that's catered to water and fire energy based upon my energy and maybe what I've confirmed through my experiences. Let me introduce some logic and practicality, some earth and air, and also let me surround myself maybe with a couple people who are leaning a little bit more in different energies of mine, and I can maybe get a better consensus on what the best choice is for that particular situation. Because see, that's the problem with biases. When you develop biases, and a lot of times we have emotional biases and we have mental biases. So there's things we assume mentally, and there's things we assume emotionally, and we just again, it's even down to relationships. You know what I'm saying? You might have gone through certain relationships that looked a certain way, or again, your parents might have been a certain way in their relationship, that make you assume everybody act that way, or everybody has secret thoughts in this direction, and it leads you to move off of those assumptions. But what they say about assumptions, making an ass out of you and me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, again, biases lead to assumptions and expectations, and both of these things can be detrimental when going through actual experience. Sometimes you have to let something present itself to you to show you what it is. But a lot of times, just the human nature side of things, we want to predict and prevent, and maybe we every human tries to predict what will happen in order to lessen the blow of pain, or lessen the experience of things going wrong. Everybody secretly, it's like a human nature thing to want to be right, or on the right side of things. And I think that's just kind of been ingrained for so many generations to generations, that that becomes the perceive that's like every human leans on that side of wanting to be able to predict and prevent pain. And they say pain is the best teacher, and it's the best teacher because you don't forget the things that hurt you. You hold on. A lot of people hold on to these things, and they become their insecurities, they become their internal shield. And some people dedicate their whole life to not going down that path again. But you got to realize that all of that shielding and all that trying to protect yourself, preservation, self-preservation, That's how unhealthy ego is developed, right? Ego is not bad by itself, but ego's purpose is to create separation, be an individual, and act as a shield through your identity, aka able to express yourself and actually claim your space. You need ego in order to claim your space in the world in the world, basically. As you know, as spirits, though, the spiritual side of things is more so understanding the balance between that ego and then the other side of ego, which is the vulnerability. And vulnerability is the ability to connect, to trust, and things like that. When you are too much in ego, you're not connected to anything. You're reclaiming your individual space, which is healthy in some ends. But if you haven't realized yet, being too much in your ego, it leads to again, being trapped in your own world, only being able to see your perspective. And these type of things lead you to more and more loneliness and more being kind of in your, again, locked away in your own world. These are the type of people who, again, end up maybe being successful on some aspects, but you look at like some of the deeper aspects of their life and they ain't got nobody around them that truly knows them, truly supports them. They don't got no real, they kind of lose touch with the real meaning of what it means to kind of have a purpose, because part of having a purpose is not really so much for yourself, but a purpose starts to become it starts to turn into a gift to offer to the world. And that offering to the world, being of service to the world, also plays out in even down to relationships. You can't have a healthy relationship if you're not willing to be vulnerable, because vulnerability leads you into not only connection but the willingness to be of service, because your vulnerability and recognizing someone else's vulnerability is it's that, like, that's that space in which you start to develop what's called understanding, what we consider understanding. And that understanding, it's like that's kind of where service is derived from. People who give back to the community, like do like food drives and do different things, volunteer, they do it because they understand what it's like to be in someone else's position who doesn't have what they might have. It's like the ability to actually get into the mind of another or the feeling of another, and then offer what you recognize that you have, that you're able to kind of let go of, because vulnerability also leads us into letting go and releasing things. Ego wants to hold on. Ego wants to claim and wants things to last forever. So ego, being too much in your ego, will look like a person never wanting to grow up, and not grow up, but a person who never wants to get old, never wants to be seen vulnerable, and never wants to be, and that becomes what we might consider a selfish person later on in life. Oh, that person's selfish. And it's because they built this identity out of all the things that they can hold on to. And this is kind of where the two sides, we have to find balance between ego and vulnerability in order to have not only a healthy experience for ourselves, but to also become better partners in other people's lives, and then also be better people in the world. Like, that's kind of the issue with the world. A lot of the world, it baits people with this idea that they have to be a certain way, and that certain way is again heliocentric and sun worship type shit that I was talking about in that one live I dropped, talking about heliocentric energy. Not heliocentric energy, but how the society praises the sun, and it's a heliocentric ideology that runs the world. So it almost seems that at a certain point you can't be successful in the world if you're not selfish, if you're not in a space of only seeing yourself and not listening to nobody, and it's only you, and you got to be the best at the best, and it's competition, all that hyper Aries energy, even down to how they say the world or society is patriot y'all know what I'm trying to say, masculine driven, you know what I'm saying, and kind of, how everything is modeled off of the patriarchy. That's what it is. How they'll say, oh, the world is it's patriarchy and stuff like that. And then the reason why, and see, the thing about it is, like I said before, there's nothing wrong. Masculine energy has a very important role in the world and life in general, but again, it's about balance. So what they create is scenarios where they put people in psyops in which they cling to one aspect and kind of overindulge in that aspect and then neglect the other one. So you have a world that's modeled after the patriarchy, but neglects the feminine aspect of things. And what's happened is over time, we got the reverse where because of the negligence of the other aspect or the other side of the spectrum, we had this emergence of extreme feminine energy, feminism, and things like that, right? That became another psyop to basically flip it. But because it was so much so long in one aspect of the spectrum, guess what happens? The overcompensation of the other side. So now we're in a world now that, again, faced with feminism and things like that. And this isn't to jump on that, you know what I'm saying? Again, I'm just explaining how these processes work over time and why in society it looks the way it is, especially like when we consider things like gender wars and things like that, right? So with all that extreme feminine energy, you got it trickling down all the way down to women actually feeling like they got to do more masculine type things just to make it or manage themselves in the world. But guess what? Innately, that doesn't work. Same thing with men. Men being kind of in that space of being attacked at that certain point and things being flipped because of being so much into one side of things. It got men trying to do what women doing and women trying to do what men do, but all it did was decentralize everybody's energy, so everybody's confused about where to invest their energy into, and it kind of turned into a free-for-all where you got, it's like everybody. And see, the thing is, we all have both of these energies, but it's about percentages. So you got men too much in a feminine aspect, and you got women too much in a masculine aspect. And of course, that creates clashes on many different levels. You know what I'm saying? So where now, even in modern dating and modern relationships, you can't, it's like it always feels like both individuals are getting less than what they really need. And it kind of takes a certain level of, again, like it takes a certain level of just commitment to creating that balance and creating a new way to go about it. Again, we in the midst of a shift. So it's like it's a whole new way we even got to go and approach that. And even with Venus right here in Aquarius, that's kind of that's not a bad energy to be going through this type of shift during, because Venus and Aquarius, it literally is relating in a way in which we get out of the traditional assumptions of what each other's supposed to do, and we can now innovate and create a new system that works for both of us as individuals if we're willing to, keyword, have that conversation, if we're willing to actually come to, and not just, again, that conversation has to be more so rooted in um logic. It has to be logically discussed. So, it's kind of like that. You have to be able to, and part of Aquarius energy too is kind of getting away from that fixated emotional bias, down here, which is difficult at the moment because we got Mars retrograde. So there's a lot of pent up anger. Don't be surprised if you're developing or carrying, harboring energy, negative energy or aggression from past experiences that now all of a sudden you want to blow up about, or now all of a sudden you're trying to get justice on, or trying to fight and be aggressive about, because this Mars retrograde, there might have been a lot of things that you was kind of putting up with that now all of a sudden are being re-triggered and now being something you're trying to fight through, or in this right here being opposite Venus, again specifically through things that you felt like your value might not have been respected, you feel like your passion might not have been respected, whatever it was. It's just pent up anger from past scenarios and past situations. um Again, you could be angry about yourself. You could be angry about people around you. You could be angry about a lot of shit. But again, it kind of goes back to this moon in Gemini. We need to extract the information, but not get so lost in the mix of the feelings. Even though it's the moon is where the feelings at, but it's in Gemini energy. We need to keep that light so that we can extract wisdom, and that wisdom we can look back to other ways in which we've handled certain things, and then acknowledge the fact that even though that might have been how it was back then, this is a new shift, and we can actually change the trajectory towards something that we actually want to experience, rather than just keeping us in a loop. Because depending on depending on how you kind of deal with those emotions is going to kind of determine the next step for you. Now, and the reason of that is because we could look at the it doesn't show up on oh yeah, it does. The North Node. We got the North Node in Aries. and the south node is in Libra, right? So the sun trining where the north node is, we're looking at where we need to go, and we're also having an opportunity to acknowledge kind of where the imbalance is. And so that's going to kind of be the next kind of question for you is like, what do we do with that imbalance? And then the moon, we feel where the imbalance is, we can sense it, because the moon is trining Libra. So there's decisions to be made there, but we also feel the opportunity of what we can get to if we lean more into our spiritual path and we kind of just go for our own individual shit. But the thing about it is, again, how you go about it is up to you. Because I also want to point out the moon also is trining Pluto. So with the moon trining Pluto and trining the south node, it's kind of like this. All of these many different thoughts that are being derived at the moment, it's kind of like this is kind of the fixated thought though, and this is the initiator. So Libra is the initiator, but our fixed thoughts is on the transformation itself. Shout out to Mooney Mercury baby up in here. I appreciate you, bro. The fixated thought right here is on our transformation. And so again, you might be going through something in your life where you're not considering that. You're not really thinking about, like, again, if you're on the lower octave of this energy, the full moon, you probably just scattered and that's just where you at the moment. So you don't know what to think about. So I'm gonna give y'all a hint. It's right here. It's like the Pluto energy is really what we're the fixated thought that can kind of anchor all of that mutable Gemini energy, because the confusion is coming from you not really understanding or considering what you want to do or where you want to direct your transformation. So you might have a bunch of information around you, but it's nothing relevant to what you actually want to transform in your life. So therefore, it's a bunch of random shit. And again, that could equate into uh whether it be gossip or just information, irrelevant information, things that don't really pertain to nothing. It's just a bunch of shit that is just there to distract you. And see, we can even see that being reflected in society and the government based upon the news stories that they putting out. You know what I'm saying? Well, on the entertainment end, they don't really got to do nothing to keep people distracted, because people just look at celebrities' lives to escape their own reality and not have to think about their problems and not have to think about the things that they actually need to get up and do, take care of as a responsibility. But on the other end of that, the news channels and things like that. See, now we getting into a weird time. If you're not paying attention, you probably missed some of the things going on pertaining to um, drones. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll say, "Oh, it's aliens and shit like that," but the real thing that they doing is these drones. And there's a lot of conversations being had about the introduction of security, robot security into certain because there's a story. Actually, I wanted to do a separate live on this, but I'm just gonna say it right here, and I probably am still. But there's a in Atlanta, there's an apartment complex that's introducing this robot security dog named, I think, Beth or something like that. And basically it's a robot security dog that the complex owns that monitors what's going on. And again, like, this is the type shit we've been talking about, type shit that movies been made about. Again, all y'all know the spiel. This is shit that, like, we seeing it though. 2025 about to be wild, because okay, we got security robots being kind of starting to become normalized. That's just an apartment complex, but also there's been talks of certain companies adopting these things to secure the premises. So already off the bat, if you're a security guard, just know your time is limited. You better start looking, developing some other skills and sending out resumes, or connecting with like-minded individuals so y'all can build something in which you don't have to be reliant on your job being replaced. So off the bat, now they said in the news story that it's not here to replace police, but it's like you got to really sit there and think for a second, like, yo, hold on. Okay, that's being introduced, and then you got drones. and these drones being used to monitor what's going on, right? And then again, we've been giving them all the information they need for face recognition. And also back to the drone thing. I mean, back to the security dog. It's AI powered, but there's a the news story said there's an individual in Bogota, Colombia, who's operating this motherfucker. So you get what I'm getting at? Like now they're outsourcing, basically they're outsourcing to Colombia to get a dude to monitor a security dog for an Atlanta apartment complex. Like that's kind of like wow, just as a concept. It's kind of like, yo, it's kind of right, right. Shout out to Jackie Do. It's like, what? So this is kind of what we looking at the moment. You know, we looking at a world where we about to have, and see that's a key point too, because a lot of times when we think about these robots, we assume, okay, well, it's just AI powered. But the truth is, you know, how they were saying about Neuralink and how a lot of these early robots and machines and shit like that are really going to be powered by people on the other end, because the technology, even if they have the technology that can be fully automated, it's not quite there yet. And I think that's kind of like something to be aware of, because now the next set of jobs to get into is going to be, oh, I can be a remote worker for this robot that I'm operating and powering. And even people getting robots in their own house. You don't know who's on the other end of that watching and seeing all the weird shit that you into. Again, a lot of they power comes from being able to monitor y'all and group y'all into one location, and then based upon y'all desires, basically group y'all and feed y'all a bunch of shit to keep you pacified and keep you stable. And you know, again, everything that the government does is control tactics. So if it's about control to them, power and control. That's why we look at Pluto to consider what the new age regarding them is going to be about, like centered in, because that's all they're trying to do. Even like how they be talking about the colonizer shit. Shout out to Dolo and shit. The colonizer mentality, that whole theme of how do I take over something and maintain control for long enough for it to do what I want it to do? Because everything is predicated to them trying to build their own world and maintain their systems and things like that. Because that's what it's all about to them. But see, that's where the difference is, because we know, or we should know, and if you didn't know, now you know, nigga, is that's not what life itself is about. You know what I'm saying? Life itself is about other things, but it's like we live in a world that's ran by we live in a society that's ran by, again, individuals who basically honor control. That's their god. They pray to control. Create a That's why even they created religion itself, is to replace, is to give people a mental control. You know, say that's the first form of control that they were experimenting with. But again, we're no longer in the age of Pisces. So being that we're no longer in the age of Pisces, the symbol of control, or what control looks like, is technology. And that's actually what we're looking at. Shout out to Famous Malo up in here. So, you know, that's just something to consider, is like when you're looking or understanding what's going on in the world, understand that's why nowadays religion isn't as important. It's more so about these technologies, and the new set of religion is going to be filtered through technology. That's why, again, you need to check on your grandma and make sure she's not praying or confessing to AI Jesus and shit like that. But though, even though it might not look like AI Jesus, that think about everybody who's using AI to ask existential questions. It's the same concept of you praying or looking for some kind of answer outside of you. AI is in a lot of ways, is just, again, it's artificial intelligence. So you get a lot of people who, if you're not aware, you could easily start to blend that line between, let me just ask, like even asking Google. You know, there's research you can find out yourself, but then there's, I could just Google it, which, again, everything starts as a convenience, but then becomes a control. It becomes that convenience turns into a laziness, an innate laziness to go out and do it yourself, which there's a balance there, because I'm the first person, I'm the last person to tell you to not understand technology and use it for what it's necessary for. Technology does make things convenient. Again, you don't have to make things harder for yourself but it's about a balance it's really about a balance, but the balance comes from knowing what you're doing and knowing what these things are in the first place. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what the thing you're using is, you're not gonna do it right. If I'm using a screwdriver, but I ain't never seen one before and I don't know what it's for, I'm gonna either hurt myself or do something wrong and potentially break something, right? So this technology, understand that okay, you can't run from it. There's finna be drones, there's finna be robots, it's finna be Neuralink, it's finna be this shit. It's inevitable, right? So instead of kind of being cowering away from it, I implore y'all or advise y'all to learn about it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He says chat GTP haunted. What is haunted? You know what I'm saying? Like when you say haunted, what do you mean? You know what I'm saying? I'm a chill on you because you know what I'm saying, you new here. I'm a chill on you, but what are you even saying? You know what I'm saying? Is AI. It's basically ChatGTP is Google with a personality. Think of it like that. Google with a humanoid personality. It's not, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, getting back to this stuff, it's like again, y'all should try to learn for yourselves just what's going on and figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Start to put the pieces together for you so that you won't have to be, because again, think about your grandma and grandpa who just now on Facebook, again, a couple years ago, they was probably on Facebook showing their ass because they didn't know how to use it. But that's because when it was first coming out, they was completely rejecting it and shit like that. And again, you can live the life you want to live because, in all honesty, and this is why the community thing is so important because we have the means. See, the power is in the people. We have the means to bring people together and create systems that can operate the way we want to operate them, right? Now, that's not disregarding the fact that we're doing this on their land, right? Their colonized land. So that means that on some degree, there probably has to be there has to be a preparation for the type of conversations and maybe even negotiations on what that would look like. But essentially, if we come together and we create a community that's self-sufficient and kind of shows some kind of again, creates a system that at least works for us in the right context, you know, we won't have to rely on what they're trying to push for the common person and the common development. Or it's kind of like they're people just like y'all. So essentially, it's about presenting a new way to do something and being like, hey, this is an example. They're doing what they're doing because it works. You know what I'm saying? Again, as fucked up as it might be, it works. And everybody, it's the same thing as you. When you're living life, and let's say you're living your lifestyle in a certain way that might look destructive to others, but it works for you. You're not gonna give a fuck about what somebody else is saying is a potentially better way to live your life. You're gonna be like, man, fuck you. You don't give it up. You're not getting up every day and walking in my shoes and doing what I'm doing to know that your suggestion for how I could live better is gonna work. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all know if somebody came to you right now and said, stop getting on YouTube and watching people talk about spirituality. You look at them like, it works for me. If it works, it works. So they doing what they doing because it works. Until again, you get another example of how something could be done, and then all of a sudden you start to consider, well, okay, well, shit, maybe there's other ways to do this one thing, you know? So, that's just something to consider moving forward. But yeah, like it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? There's new technology and shit. But um I think I still want to do a separate live stream on that and just kind of talk about the news story itself because it's just interesting to kind of see like this is the rollout. This is them kind of they've been prepping people, but this is really what's happening. 2025. That's what by the end of 2025, that's what we're gonna see. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're gonna see. That's gonna be not even a hot topic. And so we need to be considering right now um how we want to go about that. Not even how we want to go about that, but again, what I'm gonna be doing, and it's not everything I'm gonna be doing, but what I'm gonna be doing is learning more about it and I know, continuing to put these things together that we can. It's all about solutions, you know what I'm saying? So I'll be working on a solution. You know what I'm saying? And again, going live and shit like that, having these meetings, having these link ups and all that, that's all going to contribute to us at least coming up with different ideas on how we want to navigate the world and how we want to move and operate. Because the thing about it is, like I said before, the life itself isn't about control like how they make it. That's just what they're invested into. But you know, yeah. Anyway, getting back on topic, you know what I'm saying? So for the most part, I forgot why I even got into all that, but oh, I think it's because we was talking about Pluto. So again, let's centralize ourselves right now. So with this full moon energy, you might not know how to deal with some of the information you get, and you might not know how to actually manage and again, you based upon how the energy, how the information is coming at you, you might not understand, or it might be hard to concentrate on one thing and figure out where your anchor point is. And the anchor point is coming from you again. What how do you want to transform your life at the moment? And that transformation is supposed to look like how this North Node is looking. So this North Node is porting you to understanding your own self and kind of pushing you to it's like the opportunity. It's like there's a lot of things that, and what I'm saying about Aries energy in the North Node is not about necessarily separating from everything and being completely selfish. It's just understanding what you want out of life and being more kind of uh being more initiative on that, like taking being more assertive about that, you know. And the thing about it is it's going to affect this Libra energy, right? But the gift is it's not going to make it harsh. It's going to make it something that can be logically discussed. It can be balanced out. Um, you know, again, conversations, communication is going to be important. But see, the thing is, with this moon here and being that it's a full moon in Gemini, we have to be a little bit more mindful about just saying stuff to say it. Like, you know, that's the tricky part because the moon gonna make it feel like, oh, it's Gemini. I could just say whatever. But it's like there's a lot of other things connected to it. So you got to think through what you finna say a little bit and not overthink it. But again, that kind of comes into the full moon energy. Are you satisfied with the information you got, or are you in a position where you feel like you gotta have more conversations to get more clarity, or you gotta have more of this? That's kind of just showing you might not have done what you were supposed to do with the when the moon was waxing, because the moon waxing, you should have kind of got enough of the answers that you needed to at least be okay or comfortable with the information that you currently possess. And the thing is, sometimes you can be thirsty for more information when that's not actually what's needed. So it's kind of like it's kind of giving you a hint to like reflect on what you know to be true. And the only way you can know what's true is if you actually was going through experiences involving yourself in the thing you said you wanted. So it's kind of like a it's that double-edged sword that you got to come to grips. If you don't have enough of the information you need, it's probably again, it's within you, but you're just gonna have to sit with that and ask yourself those questions. And you know, again, if there are people around you that can provide answers, and you can reach out to them and stuff like that, but try to see what you know on your own a little bit first, and then and reflect on that, consider that, and then start at, you know, I don't want to deter people from asking questions, because you know, curiosity, right, is cool. It's cool to be curious. It's curious. Communication is good, but sometimes again, it's communication, but then there's also airheaded energy where you're asking questions you know the answer to. You just want something, you're hoping for something else, and you're not actually paying attention to what's being presented to you as the answer, you know, and it's coming from what you really want. You know what I'm saying? What you really want is right there. It's just again, it could get confusing. It can kind of throw you off a little bit. But you know, all in all, though, the whole thing is don't get too wrapped up emotionally in it, because you can get wrapped up emotionally into what you think. And then before you know it, what you think then became the very same thing that's keeping you trapped. You know what I'm saying? Kind of going back to what I was saying about this conjunction right here in general. If you have a negative thought pattern, that's what you're going to start to reproduce. So again, when you go out to ask people, or you're communicating is going to be overpowered by your emotional state. And that's why if I was going to say, if I was going to give advice, I say if you know you in a crazy emotional state, then chill out on the asking and the talking until you kind of level things out and lighten things up a little bit so that the conversation can remain a conversation. Information can remain information. Because sometimes people say they looking for information, but they really subconsciously looking for confirmation. So this is when a conversation turns into an interrogation. You're not asking a question. You already came to your conclusion, but you investigating to get confirmation. You feel what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, like this happens a lot of times. You had something on your mind, you done thought about it so hard that you think you know the answer, and now you trying to ask, but you was asking that question from already a bias, and it comes down to biases. It's like you got to lighten yourself up so information could just remain information. You know what I'm saying? Instead of already holding on to an assumption and expectation for what means, and then now you asking but you're not listening. And that's why I put in the title, we listen and we don't judge, because even though that's a funny little joke on online and shit, it actually kind of deep, because most of the time if you're judging, you're not listening. And if you're listening, you could still make a judgment, but it's like, you know what, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of like if you think of Mercury and Jupiter is kind of like wisdom. It's knowing, it's learning from experience, it's forms of listening. Mercury sometimes is communicating, talking, giving, or it's kind of like the judgment or the critical aspect of it. So in, like I was saying before, we got Jupiter in Gemini and we got Mercury in Sag, and they're both retrograde. And this is why a lot of lines of communication, it's like the communication is mixed up and the interpretation or the comprehension at the moment is mixed up. So there's so many ways that information could just get crossed out and we can just be lost. And the kind of determining factor is where your feelings at, because your feelings gonna give it context and color. And when you get more color, think of that as more light, and it's going to make it more shaped and formed. And so, again, it's more things to create assumptions from. So, right now, you got to be able to listen and not so much judge, because that judgment is more so coming from where you think things are and where you think things is going to be. And so, again, like I was saying before, you got to be more willing to listen to what's going on and get the information first, and then let's break it down. After we get all the information, then we can start to make a judgment based upon analyzing what's there. Oh, okay, I went through the experience. Now I can analyze the different moving pieces to come to a conclusion, and then now I can make my answer. Versus if you do it the reverse way, you judging, you're not listening. So you're missing information, because when you judge or you have an assumption or an expectation, the only thing you're able to extract from an experience or what's being said is what you already think. Like when somebody's talking to you and you already think you know what they saying or what they mean and what they coming from, guess what happens? You only hear the things that confirm your bias. So you lack understanding and you lack clarity. And you go and take what you've assumed and you make a judgment, you make a move. And then all of a sudden you make a move in which a couple weeks, days later, you got to retract and be like, damn, okay, I might have miscalculated that. Versus being able to openly listen. Now, even if you did have an assumption or a judgment, you're still allowing the space for that individual or that person, place, or thing to give you more information so that you have a better context. See, when you listen and you leave space for things to, you leave that open-mindedness, you leave space for somebody to show you or tell you what something is, and you actually listen to it, guess what happens? Well, that new information can now help you put more pieces together, develop more understanding, and then now you can make a more wise decision, even a more wise judgment on what's actually going on. A lot of times people somebody give you some information, but let's say you assume it's bad information, or you're in a certain emotional bias in which you like, man, this person hating on me. So now everything they say, they could be praising you. They might have one critique. All of a sudden, you're like, yeah, man, fuck this person, man. They giving me some fucked up advice. They saying this, you don't, you again, and again, this is the most extreme aspect of this, but people do it all the time where you're assuming something negative and then you get the information and you can only pick that negative part. And now all of a sudden, you done blew that one little thing up to be the confirmation you needed to now go show your ass in some kind of way. And then all of a sudden, you got to look back, like when you start acting out in a certain way, people looking at you like, yeah, I don't know if that was all justified. I don't know if that was all necessary. And you might want to, because take that people don't want to take that L. So they might double down on what it is that they was not quite right about. And they want to double down on that just to protect going back to what we was talking about in the very beginning, their ego. Because the vulnerability of being wrong is another thing that people innately try to reject and try to run from. Again, everybody got different levels of this, different relationships with it. You know what I'm saying? So the mark of the full moon is whether or not you in a space where you can listen and not make a judgment call too early and too soon. You can actually take in the information and then be like, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Or damn, okay, you can see yourself. You can analyze the whole aspect, observe a little bit, see your part in things. And when you see your part in things, now again, that's that vulnerability side in which you can now come back to that conversation or that situation with a better, not only understand it, but you can come at it with a better conclusion, a actual solution. You can come to it with something that create balance, something to make it make sense. And a lot of that, again, South Node Libra, it's like you don't have to destroy everything on the pursuit of your spiritual path. But and again, everybody in a different situation. You might be in a situation where you got to be more so completely into your own shit and forget how everybody else feels. If that's what you want, and that's what you want. Again, everybody got to do what they got to do. So it's not about trying to be, you don't got to be too nice and you ain't got to be too aggressive. It's like find your balance, figure out, okay, in my life pertaining to me, what am I faced with? Because you could be around people who's gaslighting you. You could be around people who making things seem some other way, and you got to cut through all that and make what the better decision is for you. So that by all means, that's an aspect of things too, where you might be an individual who already know what's going on for real. And so when people are talking, and see, again, this is the same thing but just in a different context, right? If you still, we listen and we don't judge, right? But let's say you do know what's going on and people around you talking this, talking that. Well, guess what? You could still take that information and make a more informed decision based upon still able to listen. But uh, it's almost like when if you actually do know what's going on, the information, listening is still not going to hurt you. Listening is still going to provide you with even more information and context to be like, oh yeah, you know what? Okay, yeah, I was right in what I thought was going on. Because it's like thinking what's going on is not the same as it's like thinking what's going on. You still need to have enough space to receive the information of what's actually going on. It's like going too much off of that assumption that oftentimes gets you in trouble. Like I might know what's going on, but I'm still going to listen and take in information. It's like just don't. Right now with that full moon, it's like if you on the end of that where you know what's going on and people around you is bullshitting you, it's just going to be more apparent. It's going to be more clear, and that's going to give you all the confirmation, all the things you need to be like, okay, yeah, I assess this. I don't need to be involved in this. And then that's going to help you too, because we got enough air energy for you to just completely separate yourself from that in general and just be like, all right, cool. It turned out to actually be that. But again, my thing is like with the whole on the other end of things, making too quick of an assumption or making too quick of a judgment and not being at least open to listen and interpret that new information, because there's a lot of information being exchanged right now that's pertaining to, again, our spiritual path on the south node end, as far as the things that we're coming from, the things that we're kind of leaving from, because we leave in this space of Libra. We leave in the space of kind of being relatable, just keeping things around and balanced for the sake of having it there and being nice and harmonious. We're moving into the space of Virgo. So what we gonna have to stand on or be more in a spiritual path sense, be more kind of rooted in, is gonna have to be more Virgo type energy, more analytical and pertaining to like the details of how we're actually going about that spiritual path, which will start to be Pisces. So that'll be the dream that we're trying to reach, but also just the quality of the emotional, like the quality of the dream, the emotional aspect of that spiritual path. Like all of our spiritual path gonna start to turn into our greatest dream or our worst nightmare. And the nightmare is gonna be you starting to see all the things you're still related to that don't uphold the type of reality you want to actually be experiencing. So that's why right now you might as well go through the little turmoil of, fighting for the sake of, or just kind of being committed to where you want to go. And the things that end up falling off are the things that probably didn't provide balance in the first place. You know what I'm saying? But that's kind of where things are leading to. So yeah, getting back into like I was saying about, let me see what else is next. So that's kind of what's happening with Libra. Again, the reason why it's listen and don't judge is just because we need to get the information still. We need to know what the context is, and we need to sit with that long enough for us to make a informed decision on what's going on. Right now, if you're too busy into judgment or trying to talk too much and trying to, get your point across more so than listen, then you could be putting yourself in kind of a situation where that false judgment could be linked to a bias, and that bias will get you kind of it'll lead you to make certain decisions and make certain actions that aren't quite justified, but you thought they was because in the moment you thought you knew what was going on. So knowing what's going on is like you got to be just mindful of um where that type of arrogance can lead you. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you do know what's going on, be still a person who's willing to listen and interpret and like take in the information too. You know, shout out to Stephen Marino. So, yeah. So along with that full moon is also squaring Saturn in Pisces. So that aspect of things is also like learning how, again, kind of like, Saturn being reality and judgment. Our judgment might be completely wrong if our emotional state is frantic. And whenever it's a full moon, our emotional state normally is all over the place. So, right now you got to really sit with things and make sure that you're not just, you got to really sit with stuff and not just go off of what the delusion might look like. Sometimes you might have to learn a little bit. And this is kind of like a hint at don't, because again, these assumptions and things that we could be coming to could be just rooted in how we feel. And how we feel is sometimes we got to create distance between how we feel and what's really going on or what's really being said. Because even now, even down to like a heated argument or a emotional discussion, how you feel might not actually be the truth. Saying how you feel can start to blurry up what's actually being said. And what's actually being said, you might trip over your words or not say the right things because of how you feel in that moment. So, this is kind of we have to learn from this. We have to learn how to create that space between how we're, again, interpreting reality versus what's actually going on in reality. And that's kind of hinted even with Jupiter squaring Saturn. We have to kind of create that space so we know, okay, we're not just getting emotionally aroused and thinking our experience is something that it's not. We can actually look at the experience and have a clear view of it without getting wrapped up into how we feel about it first. It's kind of tricky because we got the moon in Gemini, and it's kind of making this, all the tools we use to interpret what's going on and make sense of our feelings and also communicate those feelings are in retrograde and opposing each other and in opposite signs that they like to be at. So in a lot of ways right now, nobody making sense. Nothing is making sense. Everything seems confusing. And this is starting to, what I'm seeing as a common theme is everybody is kind of feeling like they want to retract. Everybody's kind of feeling that energy of needing to kind of center themselves again. And I think that's kind of like a result of retrogrades and just kind of, you know, um also us going through the fall time. Fall time is always that time where it seemed like, again, everything is falling apart. But at the same time, when things fall apart, they fall into place if you know how to transmute. So, you know, but part of knowing how to transmute too is knowing how to center things in. And, that looks like contraction. We got Neptune that just went direct. So when it comes to our dreams and imaginations and things like that, that's full force right now. Neptune in 2025 is going to move into Aries. So this is knowing what to, having the right belief system to fight for. But again, our belief system too is being challenged from what we might be experiencing in reality or through information. We might get a bunch of information that challenges what we imagine or what we want, because Neptune is kind of like that dream, that fantasy. So we all have a dream that we might be aspiring to experience, but what we getting as information, again, this is why you got to listen and not judge, because sometimes that judgment is starts to become the emotional attachment to a certain outcome. So we're not, somebody could tell you something about your dream that can genuinely make it better, but because you emotional and you attached to that outcome and that dream coming true, you might not want to hear that. And so you might get defensive and reject that information. So this is like another aspect of that, where it's like, again, it's a square. You might have to learn how to not take your dreams and whatever, imaginations you want to experience, not to take them, not to, not to close yourself off to what this information might be showing you or telling you, because there might be key things in this information that's being shared that can make you, you know what I'm saying, that can kind of show you different aspects or ways in which that dream can actually make sense. You can still get what you want, but you might have to go through a little bit of that confusion, or you might have to go through a little bit of that experience or deal with a little bit of feeling delusional in order for you to create that, in order for it to start to make sense later. It's just a square. All of these things is just, transits. So you got to also keep in mind that you're going to feel differently in 2 days, what I'm saying, or 4 days, what I'm saying, for the sake of the full moon. You're going to feel differently about this information too later on. And that's why also you don't need to talk too fast or make too many movements too fast, because you might not actually be coming at it from the right headspace. That's why it's like, again, you really got to ask yourself. See, that's the problem with the full moon being in Gemini. Full moon in Gemini, you feel like the right thing to do is talk. But this is where communication sometimes ain't the key, because sometimes you have to think through what you finna say sometimes. Like sometimes you gotta like, how what you finna say might not actually be how you really feel. And so, these two things sometimes you gotta know when they matched up and not. And see, again, moon opposite Mercury. So what you thinking right now is at odds of what you feel. So you might be seeing something that you're not knowing how to think about. Like you might be looking at something and thinking about it, and you feeling opposite to it. So you feel opposing to it. But again, like the Mercury retrograde, you might be misunderstanding things. And then see, this is why communication still can be key, because you can gain clarity through the communication and stuff like that. So, you know, again, I'm just a fire sign. So I'll be like, yeah, what I'm saying, sometimes you gotta let shit rock. You gotta go with the flow a little bit. But nah, communication is good. Don't get me wrong. But it's like sometimes you can still have the wrong idea when you're communicating. Sometimes it's like sometimes things got to marinate for them to make sense. Again, I think the better thing to do is to, if something is on your mind pertaining to another individual, person, place, or thing, to communicate is good, because it gets it out in the open, and there's an opportunity for understanding. At least putting the opportunity out there. But um actually it's better here, because what we think to ourselves it's probably not, again, what we think to ourselves does more damage than what we actually might say to another individual. You know what I'm saying? So if there is something on your mind pertaining to another individual, you do want to get it out there. But at the same time, you want to just be mindful of the fact that what you might be thinking about in general is going to create emotional discomfort and it's going to be kind of at odds at what you feel and things like that already. So, it's kind of like, even don't be too afraid to say something, because it's not about trying to not say something because you too afraid, or you don't know how they might think about what you've had to say. Get it out there, but at the same time, Mercury is opposite the moon. So, um this will pass. You know what I'm saying? You might have to, depending on your situation and what's going on, you might have to let these energies settle, or find a way to communicate that same thing, but still keep your emotions balanced and not too, what I'm saying, not too explosive. You know, the lighter conversations are gonna be a little easier to have. If you come to a communication or you come into a situation and you're highly emotional, then chances are you're more so, that was either pent up, or, you know, you might not get the best clarity from that conversation. Um, yeah, let me see what else. Um, we got the moon sextile of Mars. We kind of talked about that though. Opportunity to with your passions, having your passions be more so on your mind. But the opportunity to also understand and interpret. Um, right. Shout out to Ton of Vision. He said, mind your narrative and narration. Right. Like what you might be saying to yourself about a situation is not really, not really getting the clarity. And that, in that sense, and like I said, I was joking more so when I said communication, not the key, but it's kind of like still where that communication is coming from. Make sure you're communicating to get the clarity, to get the understanding, to listen to what the answer is, not communicating to interrogate. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when you communicate to interrogate, like I was saying before, you already created an assumption, something that's too heavy for you to actually offer enough space for understanding. You're just looking for confirmation and it's not going to work. It'll backfire on you. You know what I'm saying? Or you'll get the confirmation you're looking for, but that might not still be the truth. You know, but like you said, shout out to Ton of Vision. He said, mind your narrative and your narration and bad use of your goblin. Because, like I said before, like all these retrogrades and then it being opposing each other, the sun is on the side of the Mercury and the moon is on the side of Jupiter. So you're gonna think, you're gonna think what you're looking at, and you're gonna feel like whatever your way is the right way. But that might not be true, and it might actually have a lot more to do with past things than it does the present. And the fact that this is a phase, when it changes and you feel differently later on, or you're seeing it from a different perspective, you might start to say, oh damn, I was actually recreating something, instead of actually just, and I think Mercury finna go direct. So a lot of the damage that might have been done with Mercury retrograde is going to start to look a little differently in the next couple of days and shit like that. So, just something to keep in mind. Um, yeah, let's see. And we got Lilith and Juno. This could look like uh this could look like a dark longevity. Like you could start to see something that is a problem or scaring you, and you can see it long term, you know what I'm saying? But on the other end of things, this could be you actually having the key to what your deepest fears are, or understanding your fear from a different angle, in which you kind of seeing how the ways you allowed your fear to kind of keep you from getting to that type of getting to that type of future you want to actually experience. Because Juno is like the energy of longevity, so it's something you can see longevity in. So right now it's in that fixated water, so people don't want to let go of their biases right now, and they want their biases are kind of triggering their fears, in a sense of not wanting to get out of that space. So you got to just check yourself on that end too. It's retrograde too, so you find out all the past reasons as to why certain things is scary, or not something you really want to go through again, or not something, but again, you might not, just because it was like that back then. In this new situation, we in a new shift, so it might not be that now. it might not actually look like what you think it looked like based upon your past assumption. So, and this is all a misunderstanding with the moon. So we don't know how to feel about what we might be looking at in the past that scared us, that looked like another aspect of what might go wrong. We don't even know how to look at that. And we misunderstand how to feel about what looks like the future. Nobody like right now is one of those times where you got to remember too, being at the end of the fall, we don't really have a good, healthy perspective or understanding of what the future might look like or what the next step is and what might develop after that. So, you know, you got to chill a little bit on that aspect. And a lot of this, remember too, like I don't want to keep saying certain things because sometimes, like, right, if I say faith and stuff like that, your faith being challenged, like it's sad season. So it's like a lot of things in which you just gonna have, hate to say it, but you're gonna have to have a little bit of faith in. And faith is more so not, sometimes with faith, you gotta just trust, not so much have faith in others, but have faith in yourself that whatever goes on or whatever experience you encounter, you have enough of the skill and ability to manage yourself through whatever might happen. So yeah, having faith sometimes it might be something that go wrong, but that don't mean that it was bad or that you didn't know how to handle it. If you know how to handle it, go back to what I was saying in the beginning. It's like if you know how to handle it, then it's like it could be a positive thing for you. Like I was saying about transits, like just because you feel a certain transit hits you and you feel bad and you feel like, oh damn, I fucked up. You start to get those feelings that make you nervous, right? So you equate all that bad feeling with, ah damn, I must have planted bad seeds. But you forget that the only moment is really that present moment. So it's more so about what you do in that moment in response to maybe energies and influence that you get catching. Not necessarily, oh, I feel bad, so now I'm bad now, or I'm planting bad seeds now. It's like, no, man, you got the, it's like the you have right there is one of the most powerful opportunities to manage yourself properly through that negative feeling that could turn into the best seed you ever planted. And that's kind of where faith comes in, because faith is more so you looking at yourself and saying, well, damn, even if what I'm shooting at ends up falling flat, I know I got enough ability and skill and confidence in myself to take whatever falls flat and convert that into something that'll be a stepping stone for me to get to the next space. Because like again, how we say, nothing is really good or bad. You can put yourself on a path though that can start to look negative, but even the most negative, people have been through way more negative things and turned their life around into something positive. The more you stay in one space, the more you're gonna have to reverse it. But again, having faith sometimes is not so much into other things, because sometimes people have different things like trust issues and shit like that, where they don't want to trust things and they trying to size things up before they get involved. But it's like, having that real faith of things is knowing, well, it's about me first. So I know me. And if I'm in something, no matter what I'm in, it can work out in my favor because I have the skill and ability to manage myself through that. So lack of faith is really just lack of confidence in a different context. You know what I'm saying? So in a lot of ways, and again, I'm just pointing out these energy influences where being that we got Lilith in conjunct the moon, it's like we misunderstand even what, again, we just looking at the negative potential, but we forget that along with the information, again, because information is information, air is air, but what determines whether it's good or bad is how you're using it or what you're using it for. Kind of how, like, if you think of you know it's like what you're using it for. So you can't get too wrapped up into, again, again, I feel like I'll be saying the same thing over and over again. So, you know, these are the different things that's going to be affecting us for the next couple days. And as the moon gets into Cancer, again, just expect more emotional depth to whatever been on your mind. So that's kind of why also during this full moon, we got to figure out a way to kind of release, like, sometimes so many things be on your mind. Right, a copper rod to a lightning storm. Right. Phew, right there to it. Right. Attraction. Even Steven put the magnet and shit like that. And it's really like what's going on right now. We gotta keep in mind, like, it's so important right now. It's funny and it's gonna sound crazy coming from me. Well, not really sound crazy coming from me because I'm a Pisces. So I'm always gonna be looking at too much thinking as not the best option. Like sometimes, like we gotta figure out like this full moon, just understand like full moon energy. You do gotta understand what the opposite end of that so you can create balance. Cause it's just it's too much focus into this area right here. So overthinkers right now, it's like it's gonna be kind of dangerous because you're adding more to the cup to where it's easy to overflow. And see, with an energy like Gemini, which I think Gemini is kind of somewhat misunderstood in so many ways. Gemini is it's because Gemini is kind of like a delicate energy, right? And I'm not saying that if you're a Gemini, you delicate or you soft or you tender and shit like that. I'm not joning on y'all, but I'm like Gemini is it is a tender energy. It's like if you think of Gemini, the bone structure sometimes, like think of a bone structure of a toddler or something like that. Like sometimes, and again, this is not about y'all character and saying y'all weak or nothing, but I'm saying like Gemini as an energy is one of those things we could be doing. We don't even realize we doing it because it's so light. Like think about how many thoughts you have in a day. It's so easy to have so many thoughts and they just race in and out, boom, 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 boom. the wind. The wind can like you can blow this way, blow that way, boom, 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 before you know it. So when you have an energy like this in a full moon, before you know it, you done poured into the cup and overflowed it. Before you knew it, you added way too much thought. You done got way too scattered. You done said a little too much, and you in that situation where you done blew something up that didn't quite need to be like that. So you know that's just something to keep in mind right now. And everything at this point is being highly motivated by emotions. So how you feel is creating again, like Tunnel Vision said, that copper rod to the lightning storm. So don't set yourself up to attract a bunch of negative things just because you thinking about it in a certain way or your perspective of it is that way. Even if you are going through a tough time, try to find balance so that you can come at it from a more balanced space and you won't just be assuming on one end of things, because that's oftentimes what happens. Because once you start thinking, thoughts and stuff is like a hamster wheel. So you'll start going, and before you know it, it's like you done created this cycle, this cyclone, and that cyclone is just creating again more things for you to get invested in. And before you know it, again, the next energy gonna be that moon in Cancer. So you really gonna start to manifest these different things that become challenges, all because you a misuse of your mind. And we in this Sag season. So it's like if we were to look at the balance of this, it would to be a little bit more um be a little bit open to different perspectives on what's going on and kind of approach things in more of a willing to, again, like I said, listen and not so much judge. Let's take in new perspectives and seeing different angles of something before we just go off on the information itself. The information is valuable. Moon trine and Venus, the information is valuable, but our interpretation of the information might kind of muddy the waters, basically. Um, yeah, and that's the main thing, man. Moon, sextile and Chiron a little bit, what I'm saying, opportunities for you to again, sensitivity towards mistakes and stuff like that. And Chiron being in conjunct Lilith is another aspect too that we misunderstand, how just because we made a mistake in one aspect, that doesn't mean that all is lost, or that doesn't, that mistake isn't going to throw everything off or be the end of the world type shit. Like with Lilith, sometimes you think that energy be the end of the world, and it's in Scorpio. So there might be things that we just got to release as far as fears. Like a lot of fears, we got to treat them as something to release and something to give away. Let's get rid of that so that we can continue to expand. Because that's what the new shift is looking at. It's like this is all new territory. So you can make something completely different out of what you know what I'm saying? You could switch it up right now. Like right now is one of the, and this is something I've been experiencing for myself because there's two aspects of this. On the other aspect, is the one I'm talking about where you kind of like trying to fight with this internal energy, but a lot of this is you seeing all the ways in which, damn, I can actually get that shit now. Everything that I kind of been reaching for that was creating resistance, I can actually get there now because we had all we been had the vision, we been had the skills and the abilities, but now it's like it's different. It's now we have the access. It's like the energy is open for us to actually take what it is that we want, for us to actually strive and expand into this new space if we allow ourselves to be. Again, Sag on the other end of things is the um what you would call it, the I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's the expansion. You know what I'm saying? Sad. Oh, the cage. It's the freedom of the cage. It's like being free from the cage, you know. And everything I was talking about beforehand was us stepping up to the responsibility to be the one who hold the keys, to be the one who can have the freedom. You know, the key to freedom is like discipline type energy. Where before here, the whole waxing period was our discipline towards what we believe in, and if we believe that, we're going to step into that role and do what's necessary to be in that space and have that, maintain that status. So now it's like it's either paying off for you, or you having you're kind of realizing that the real cost of what you didn't do. So either you paid your dues and now it's like I can afford to be free and reach what I want to reach, or you're realizing the cost of all the things you didn't take initiative to do, all the things you didn't quite take responsibility for. You seeing the cost of it. You like, damn, this shit way more expensive than if I had done the responsibilities and did what I was supposed to do at the time I was supposed to do it. So now you're dealing with the full moon. You're getting the information of how much it actually costs. The fact that you didn't take responsibility, the fact that you didn't get up and make the decisions that you needed to make earlier on in SAG season, even maybe earlier on in the year. Because this is the point of the year you're supposed to be looking at everything you did and being like, damn, you know, I actually did do a lot this year, man. I did this. I put Peter, I did that. I experienced that. Oh shit, I actually went through that. And I learned a lot from this. I learned a lot from that. This is supposed to be a time you counting all the things on your fingers that you accomplished, getting ready for Capricorn season, because Capricorn is gonna be like, okay, let's take everything we did and let's start to condense it, make a new blueprint, and then bam, you know, now we on a new path, a stepping stone and shit like that. Let's get it. That needs to be the energy of Capricorn. But you got a lot of people looking at themselves now like, damn, you know what? I feel trapped because I got so many things piling up that I didn't address. I feel trapped. I ain't do this. I ain't do that. And your list is a lot shorter. So you might be doing some catch up shit right now, leading into Capricorn. You feeling decentered. You feeling like, damn, I don't really. Where is my stability? Where is my resources? Where is my shit? And it's because you wasn't participating the way you was supposed to prior to this energy now. And a lot of people live their life that way, you know. And again, some people stumble into success, but a lot of people struggle. And then the first thing they want to do is blame everybody else, make themselves a victim because it feels better to do that than it does to just admit, damn, I fucked up. I didn't do that. I didn't see that. And we all have the ability to get better, but you have to first acknowledge where you lack, you know. But right now it might hurt right now to sit with that. It always hurts to sit with that. But, you know, yeah, that's just something to consider too. Um, yeah. So anyway, you know, we still got the Each One Teach One going on. It's starting this Monday. So if you are interested in being a student to our community-based learning network, please reach out to me, send an email, e1t12 conference.info@gmail.com. Or if you're following me on IG, you can just go ahead and hit me up on there, send me a DM, and I will get you all the sign up information. You know, we going into many different topics regarding mental health, childhood trauma and things like that, healing those types of things, eternal healing. So matching your spiritual age, you know what I'm saying? Figuring out how to actually mature as a spirit. We talking about topics regarding holistic health, you know, body movement, stretches to do, all types of things like that, as well as what's another thing too? We got art class too. Art, you know, getting into the psyche and how to use art in a different creative way. You know, I'm talking about like physical art and different rituals, you know, to get into to cleanse yourself and get your mind right. You know what I'm saying? All these different things pertaining to how to become better in all aspects of life. You know, so let's say you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to do something creatively into creative arts. This is a beneficial class for y'all too, because this is the essence and where um creativity stems from. You know, taking care of these things makes your creativity way more potent. It makes you kind of more aware and prepared in different aspects of life and shit like that. So, you know, that's what's going on now. Like I said before, hit me up and I'll give you all the sign up information. You know, we getting things kicked off Monday. So if you haven't already, reach out to me before Monday so you can get your spot in class. And if you are able to well, I'll get into that later, you know what I'm saying? So be on the lookout for that. I made a post about it. You can go there and get the information as well. But again, you know, it's dope. You know what I'm saying? This is a new innovative way to do the whole online course learning thing. And again, it's online for now, but the potential is to actually create a school out of these different curriculums and stuff like that. Because these are very important things. Before we even get into the world, we need to be able to do some of these things and get right on that aspect. So, you know, just something to keep in mind. Other than that, y'all have a beautiful full moon. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you stay grounded, stay focused. You know, right now it's so many different, a lot of information coming out, but try to center yourself on what's actually going to lead you towards transforming yourself in a proper way. What's going to actually lead? What's the information you need to start picking at that's going to drive you towards what you actually want to experience, rather than getting caught up in information that's just either stagnant, holding you back, or something that's not actually going to amount to anything of value. You know what I'm saying? Right now, that's the biggest thing. People can get caught up into the wrong information before they know it. They wasted this time, which this is a very potent time to get you prepared and ready for the shifts coming up in 2025. We got to talk about that. So, you know, be on the lookout for a video talking about that too, because you know, it's very real. You know what I'm saying? We're going through very real things and there's no time to waste. So much love. Catch you on the next one. Peace. Let me figure out how to close this shit.